Can Claude Cowork organize my files better than me? If you don't know what Cowork is, it's Anthropic's agentic desktop and cloud workspace. It can execute complex multi-step tasks directly in your files without requiring a technical terminal. Its main feature is that unlike standard chat where you type in a prompt step by step, you can actually describe an outcome that you want to see, and Claude Cowork will plan and execute that work on your behalf. The purpose for what I was trying to go through was basically to see if Claude Cowork could organize my files better than the original file organization system that I had come up with. I wanted to see if the output that Claude Cowork would create would be better than something that I had come up with on my own. So as you can see here, this is what I started out with. These were the original folders that all of my files were sitting in. I had them loosely tagged to different naming conventions, but there wasn't really any rhyme, reason, or organization behind these files. Alright, so the first thing that I did is I just went to Claude's website. It took me to the Claude code page first. I, by the way, have a pro subscription, and I believe you do need a pro subscription to use Cowork. To actually use Claude Cowork, I went and I downloaded the desktop app. I moved the actual application to my applications folder, and then I opened up the app on my computer. Then I signed in on my account. So the desktop app of Claude looks a little bit different than the web app version. You can see on my Claude code here, you can see some of the messages, the tokens, and how often I use it, which is pretty often. My favorite model is Opus 5, which if you don't know, I'll make a separate video going through all of the different models and kind of what are the differences between them. Obviously, Fable is the most powerful right now, but that requires usage tokens, and we don't have an unlimited bucket of tokens to use, so Opus 5 it is. You can see some of the features on the desktop app include those routines, which are basically if you are running a scheduled job on a daily, a weekly, or an hourly basis, you can actually program a set of instructions for your Claude to run and either send you like an email update every day or to collate a summary of your messages for you in the morning. You can really customize it to do what you need it to. I don't have any routine set up yet, but maybe we can talk through it in a future video. When it came to actually using Claude to organize all of my files, I gave it access to a specific folder. I called it the messy folder. Again, the reason why I just called it out as a separate folder is that you do definitely want to be careful and make sure that you're giving Claude access to only those documents or folders that you actually want it to perform functions on. The cleanest way to do this, just for everybody's awareness, is like just to physically have like a totally different computer where you would run something like OpenClaw or just run AI without guardrails. But in the world that we live in today, I would just be mindful of what you're putting into AI. So I give it access to this folder, and now I'm going to give it a prompt to tell it exactly what I want it to do. So the prompt that I wrote is that imagine you're an expert organizer and a video editor. You perform top-notch quality jobs for your clients, organizing their files and raw footage to make it easy to clean up files on their computer. I have a folder called Messy Folder with raw video clips, stickers, B-roll, overlays, and music that I want you to organize so that I can most quickly and precisely edit my YouTube video. I feel like even though my files are in folders, it's not conducive to editing, and it doesn't give me a clear picture of what file covers what. Can you help me read through the footage first, then suggest some ways that I can organize it? At this point, Claude started to read through the different files. It even wrote out some tasks for itself. I wanted it to first read through all the footage before taking any sort of actions. So that's precisely why I told it to, hey, read through this first before you make any decisions for me. It determined that it needed to inventory every file in the folder, basically take a look at each video clip, scan it, maybe watch some of it, and then also review some of the other like stickers, assets, brand kits, audio that I had listed out in my folder. At this point, I didn't know how long it was gonna take. I was hoping that it would take maybe 20 minutes max, but I ended up sitting here for a while, like almost an hour, waiting for this to finish running, which is fine because it's very hard for an AI to actually read video footage because it has to read the frame, it has to generate some sort of data from from that frame and then make sense of it to actually produce a conducive response and then relate that piece of information to all of the other pieces of information, both before that clip and after. So it makes sense, but just a word of caution that it took like 50 minutes to actually run through this. It was reading the different files, trying to make sense of them. Then I got curious and I was like, okay, what are you even going through? And you can see when you actually expand on the work that the AI is doing, you can see that it's running different commands, it's reading different movie files, it's reading different image files. For this video, I used Opus 5. I could have also used Fable 5, but that would require usage credits. So alas, we didn't use that one. So around 40 minutes in, I received a pop-up that the AI I finished running generated an initial footage index. So calculated around 4 hours of screen recordings. It calculated at least 17 gigabytes of information, 142 files, almost 6 hours of video in total. It was able to separate, okay, what are just talking takes versus what are screen recordings, what was B-roll that I made from Procreate. It's cool to see this initial overview, but this is where I started to get a little bit skeptical. It was great because as I started going through this artifact, I was seeing that it took different frames from each of my videos and was walking through what I had said in that video and made a determination of, okay, whether or not we should keep the clip or remove it. It also called out, okay, maybe you should pair this video with this specific like sticker or brand asset, which is great. The caveat that I'll say is that as I was actually making the video, and you can see this one on my page, without me watching the clips, I wouldn't have known which asset to make. So when it came to actually organizing this, I was a little bit skeptical because it didn't follow a process that was different than something that I could have come up with myself. So that was my main qualm. I was also hoping that maybe it would start to rename some of these movie files, but it really just took a look and took an index, which is what I told it, of what is happening in each one of these videos and why, and it created this asset on its own, which I also appreciated, and it used like colors that I like to use. I did like that then when I actually got to the way to reorganize it, it proposed 3 different options. So one of the options was by story beat, so basically to split up the different clips into different folders depending on where they could be in the video. And it gave me some other options just to leave the structure alone, but just to rename the files. And maybe that's more useful if you had a ton of different screenshots and you need to quickly organize and see what's in those screenshots. I don't know about you, but when I take a screenshot, I usually need it for one quick specific purpose, and then I never really refer back to it. And if it is something that I need to refer back to, like a logo, I'm gonna rename it and save it to that same folder because I know that I'm gonna need to refer back to it later. But if I'm just taking a screenshot or a screen recording and I'm just using it one time, I don't really know why I would spend the time and tokens needed to have Claude Cowork run through my computer for 45 minutes to tell me and just to rename these in a way that I have already done myself. The last option I didn't fully understand. It just said to let Final Cut carry the structure and basically to split up all of the different videos and assets into 3 different folders, which is fine, but I think that would actually be less productive than what it had done for me previously. Then I answered some of the questions that Claude had written out for me. I gave Claude access to actually move around the files because I didn't need them anymore. If you're trying this out on your own, I recommend making a copy and then just having Claude work out of a new folder just related to those copied assets so it doesn't delete anything that it's not supposed to. I just mentioned that it should add another folder called to delete for the stuff that it should delete. It then worked for another 5 minutes and it organized all of this footage index. Then I went to actually open this folder to see what Claude Cowork did. So I found all of my original folders. So these are the ones that had those iPhone clips, those screen recordings, those overlays, music, stickers, which is already probably a sufficient way to organize my files. It ended up taking out all of those files in those folders and then just redistributing those files to new folders. So I was checking all of these individual folders, making sure that nothing was in them. And then I actually went into like my branding folder. I did like that it had little sound effects and it put those sound effects into a separate folder. It organized 3 of the music files that I usually use into a folder, and then also just put other sound effects into a different folder. Again, maybe if I was reusing the same assets every time, this would be the most helpful, but I kind of had already done that before Claude Cowork went ahead and did this. I don't know if it was that conducive or helpful. Even my stickers, it kind of reorganized them, but they were already in a separate folder. So I don't know how helpful that was. And then Rosy Garden, again, if you haven't seen my other video, that's the video that I'm referring to, it actually just reorganized a lot of these files. The one thing that I will say is that when I was actually filming this video, and the way that I do it a lot of the time is I film in the order of what you're seeing on the screen. Like I don't film this part first and then I film another part like totally later. I do film in order. So when it came to the actual footage and what Claude Cowork is reorganizing, like it doesn't need to do a lot of reorganizing because I'm already talking in the order in which the video runs. So the fact that it split it out into all of these different sequences is fine, but it doesn't necessarily speed up my editing workflow. It just groups them according to what I'm actually showing in the video, but like I know what I'm showing in the video because I filmed it, because I thought of those ideas. So in that sense, I wasn't particularly wowed by this video footage organization. In terms of what I did like that it clearly went through all of my footage. It did organize it in some sense. It called out where the good takes were versus where the meh takes were, and it even suggested specific files that I could edit out and that I shouldn't use in the video. In terms of what wasn't my favorite about this approach is that it took a really long time to give me an output that I probably could have came up with on my own. Maybe for this specific use case, it wasn't the best at organizing all of my information. That being said, I absolutely love using Claude for building things. I've had it build working applications and tools, and Claude is also a wonderful resource to help you think through complex problems. And for Cowork specifically, if I just had to read through a bunch of different text files and put them all into like a same naming convention and to sort them by the date, that's something that could be a really great use case for Cowork. So the big question, was it worth it? For organizing my footage, the answer is no. I spent a couple hours feeding this information into Claude Cowork and I got a beautiful document as the output, but I don't think I'm ever going to refer back to it again. Maybe it was helpful to see some of those duplicate flags that Claude called out. Generally speaking though, for understanding where these tools will actually help me, I think it's still a helpful exercise to play around with Claude to figure out, okay, is Claude Cowork something that is really useful for me? And what I would say is that if you're a video person like me and you're hoping that an agent is going to do a pre-edit pass about all of your files, I would say if you have a bunch of different files, you don't remember what you filmed when, then I would say, yeah, it definitely is. But for somebody like me who filmed a lot of this footage just a couple of days ago, it didn't prove to be the best use case. If you want the actual prompt that I used, it's linked in the description below. And if you've got a Cowork experiment that went better than mine, tell me in the comments because maybe I'm wrong about this. Bye!